The crystals screamed. Across the dying world of Veltar, the Cathali felt their people's pain through the neural networks that connected their crystalline bodies. Zethara pressed her translucent hands against the command console, watching helplessly as another city fell to the machines. The Vrakth had been consuming her world for 3 rotations now, and nothing could stop them. "How many more?" she whispered to her aide, Colvin. 12 million lost in the last cycle, he replied, his voice hollow. The southern continent is completely dark. No signals. No life. Zethara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of leadership, crushing her spirit. The Cathali had known peace for over 2,000 years. Their weapons were designed to stun, not kill. Their ships were built for exploration, not war. They had no concept of the brutal efficiency that now devoured their world. The Vrakth were different from anything the galaxy had seen. Part machine, part organic tissue, they adapted to every defense the Cathali raised. Energy shields were absorbed and converted into power. Stunning weapons became fuel for their systems. Even their most advanced technology seemed primitive against the relentless invasion. "Send the message again," Zethara ordered. "Broadcast to every world, every system, every species that will listen." Colvin's fingers moved across the quantum transmitter. The message went out across space, carried by waves that moved faster than light itself. It was simple, desperate, and heartbreaking. "This is Veltar. We are dying. Our people are being consumed by machines that cannot be stopped. We have tried everything. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. We are not warriors, but we do not deserve extinction. Help us." The response came from dozens of worlds within hours. The Zanari Council reviewed the message and declared the situation hopeless. The Vrakth had consumed 17 worlds in the past century, and no force had ever stopped them. The Altarian Federation offered sympathy but claimed their fleets were needed for defense of their own systems. The ancient Corvani Empire simply ignored the plea entirely. One by one, every advanced civilization in the galaxy gave the same answer. The Vrakth were too dangerous. The Cathali were already lost. It was better to let one world die than risk the entire galaxy. Far across the void, in a small system at the edge of the Milky Way, Dr. Amanda Brooks was working late again. The Arecibo communications array had been picking up strange signals all week, and she was determined to decode them. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. "Amanda, you need to see this," called Jake Morrison from across the lab. The young communications specialist was staring at his screen with wide eyes. "What is it?" she asked, rolling her chair over to his workstation. "It's not random noise. Look at these patterns. This is language, Amanda. This is an actual alien transmission." Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked up from her calculations. "Are you sure? We've had false alarms before." "I'm sure," Jake said. "The mathematical structures are too complex to be natural. Someone is trying to communicate." Amanda felt her heart racing. After 20 years of listening to empty space, they had finally received proof that humanity was not alone. "Can you decode it?" "I'm trying. The base mathematics seems similar to ours, but the linguistic structure is completely alien." For the next 18 hours, the 3 scientists worked without rest. They fed the signal through every translation program they had. They analyzed the mathematical components, the frequency patterns, and the recurring sequences. Slowly, terrifyingly, the meaning became clear. "Oh God," Amanda whispered as the final translation appeared on her screen. "They're asking for help." The message told the story of a peaceful world under attack by unstoppable machines. It described the death of billions and the approaching extinction of an entire species. It was a cry for help from beings who had never known war, facing enemies who lived for nothing but destruction. "We have to tell someone," Elena said. "Tell them what?" Jake asked. "That aliens are real and they're being killed by other aliens? Who would believe us?" Amanda was already reaching for her phone. "The president needs to know about this. The UN, NASA, everyone. Within 6 hours, the world's most powerful leaders were gathered in an emergency session. The signal was verified by every major observatory on Earth. Linguists and mathematicians confirmed the translation. The message was real, and somewhere in space, people were dying. The debate lasted exactly 17 minutes. "We help them," said President Margaret Foster. "I don't care about the risks or the distance or the technology gap. If someone is crying for help, we answer." The British Prime Minister nodded. "The Commonwealth stands with America on this." "The European Union agrees," added the German Chancellor. "We cannot ignore genocide, whether it happens on Earth or in the stars." One by one, every nation on Earth committed to the rescue mission. It would take everything they had. Every ship, every weapon, every brave soul willing to travel into the unknown to fight an enemy they had never seen. Admiral Susan Clark stood in the war room, looking at the holographic display of Earth's small space fleet. Humanity had been building ships for less than 50 years. They had 12 vessels capable of interstellar travel, and none of them were designed for war. "It's not enough," she said quietly. "It's what we have," replied Captain Ryan Martinez. He had volunteered to lead the mission within minutes of hearing about it. "We've faced impossible odds before. Never like this. We're talking about traveling to another galaxy to fight an enemy that has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than ours. So we get creative. We adapt. That's what humans do." Admiral Clark looked at the young captain. Ryan Martinez had commanded the EDS Defiance on 3 deep space missions. He was brave, smart, and completely crazy enough to think this mission could succeed. "You understand the odds?" she asked. "I understand the stakes. If we don't help them, who will? And what happens when these Vrakath finish with their world and start looking for others?" The Admiral nodded slowly. "You're right. If we're going to face them eventually, better to do it now while we still have allies." The message went out from Earth 12 hours later. It traveled across space at the speed of light, carrying humanity's response to the desperate plea. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of an entire world's determination. "This is Earth. We received your message. We are coming to help. Hold on." On Veltar, Zeth Ara was directing the evacuation of the last Crystal City when the impossible happened. Her aide Colvin stumbled into the command center, his body flickering with excitement. "A response," he gasped. "We have a response." "From whom?" Zethara asked, barely daring to hope. "A world called Earth. They say they are coming." Zethara looked at the message, reading it over and over. No one had answered their pleas. No civilization in the galaxy was willing to face the Vrakath. But somewhere, impossibly, people she had never heard of were willing to risk everything to help strangers. "What do we know about this Earth?" she asked. Colvin checked the galactic databases. "Nothing. The system is not in our records. The signals are coming from the edge of the galaxy, from a region we have never explored." "Are they advanced enough to help us?" "I do not know, but they are the only ones who answered." Outside the Crystal City, the Vrakath machines continued their advance. But for the first time in 3 rotations, Zethara felt something other than despair. Somewhere in the darkness of space, help was coming. She did not know who these humans were or what they could do against the Vrakath, but they had answered when no one else would, and sometimes that was enough to keep hope alive. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light that lit up the dying world of Veltar. Captain Ryan Martinez stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiance, staring at the massive planet below. Half of it was dark, consumed by the strange machines that had been destroying everything in their path. "My God," whispered Dr. Helen Carter, the mission's chief scientist. "Look at the size of it. The planet is 3 times bigger than Earth, and those things down there are eating it alive," said Marine Colonel Pete Jackson, pointing at the dark spots spreading across the surface like a disease. Captain Martinez opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Ryan Martinez of Earth. We received your call for help. We are here." The response came immediately. The voice was strange, like music mixed with crystal chimes, but the translation systems worked perfectly. "Earth ships, this is Zeth Ara of the Keth Ali. We cannot believe You came. We thought no one would answer. We always answer, Martinez replied. That's what humans do. Within hours, the first meeting between humans and aliens took place aboard the Defiance. Zethara arrived with 2 of her advisors in a ship that looked like it was made of living crystal. When she stepped onto the human ship, everyone stopped and stared. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Her body was made of translucent crystal that caught and bent light into rainbow patterns. She stood 7 feet tall but moved with a grace that made her seem to float. Her face was almost human, but her eyes were like looking into deep pools of starlight. You are so small, she said, looking down at Captain Martinez. And you came from so far away. We came as fast as we could, Martinez replied. Tell us about these Vrakhth. What are we fighting? Zethara's light dimmed. They are not like us. They are not like any living thing. They are part machine, part flesh, but they have no souls. They consume everything they touch and make it part of themselves. Dr. Carter stepped forward with her recording equipment. How long have they been attacking your world? 3 rotations. In your time, that would be about 6 months. They came from the darkness between stars. Our sensors could not detect them until they were already here. Colonel Jackson was studying the tactical displays. What kind of weapons do you have? How have you been fighting them? We do not fight, Zethara said simply. We have never fought. Our people have known peace for 2,000 years. We have tools that can stun, but we have never built weapons meant to kill. The humans looked at each other in shock. Captain Martinez could not believe what he was hearing. You've never had wars? Never had armies? Why would we? We are all connected through the crystal networks. We share thoughts and feelings. To hurt another Kethali would be to hurt ourselves. But someone must have attacked you before, Dr. Carter said. Some species must have been hostile. Never. In all our history, we have met 17 different species. All of them were peaceful like us. We thought all intelligent life was peaceful. Colonel Jackson shook his head. Lady, I've got some bad news for you. Most of the universe isn't peaceful. Most of it wants to kill you. Before Zethara could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. The communications officer called out from his station. Captain, we're getting massive energy readings from the planet's surface. Something big is moving toward us. On the main screen, they could see the Vrakhth fleet rising from the planet. The ships were nightmares made real. They looked like they had been grown instead of built, with organic curves mixed with mechanical parts. Some had what looked like faces with too many eyes. Others moved like living creatures, twisting and changing shape as they flew. Incoming transmission, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Martinez ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was wrong in every way. It sounded like metal grinding against bone, like screaming mixed with machine noise. New prey has arrived, unknown species from unknown world. You will be analyzed. You will be consumed. You will become part of the Vrakhth collective. Like hell we will, Martinez replied. This is Captain Martinez of Earth. You will stop your attack on this world and leave immediately. The Vrakhth response was laughter that sounded like breaking glass. Earth. Checking galactic databases. No records found. Analyzing ship composition. Primitive metals. Basic energy systems. Laughable defensive capabilities. You might be surprised, Martinez said quietly. Surprise is impossible. We have consumed 47 civilizations. We have absorbed their knowledge, their technology, their biological advantages. You are nothing new. The transmission ended, and the Vrakhth ships began moving toward the human fleet. There were hundreds of them, all different shapes and sizes. Some looked like the ships of other species, probably taken and modified. Others were purely Vrakhth design, looking like metal parasites grown to enormous size. Battle stations, Martinez ordered. All ships, prepare for combat. Dr. Carter was still talking to Zethara. You said they consume civilizations. What does that mean exactly? They take everything, Zethara replied, her voice full of pain. They capture our people and connect them to their machines. They steal our memories, our knowledge, our technology. Then they use it to make themselves stronger. They're parasites, Colonel Jackson said. They don't create anything. They just steal from others. The worst kind of parasites, Dr. Carter added. They don't just take resources. They take identity. They steal what makes each species unique. Captain Martinez was listening while watching the tactical display. The Vrakth were moving in perfect formation, like a single organism with hundreds of parts. His 3 ships looked tiny compared to their fleet. Zethara, I need to know something. Has anyone ever hurt them? Ever made them retreat? No. They adapt to everything. The Corvani tried to fight them 50 years ago with energy weapons. The Vrakth absorbed the energy and used it against them. The Altarians tried kinetic weapons. The Vrakth modified their hulls to deflect them. What about close combat? Hand-to-hand fighting? Zethara looked confused. Why would anyone fight with their hands? That would be suicide. Not for humans, Colonel Jackson said with a grim smile. We're pretty good at suicide. The first Vrakth attack came without warning. Energy beams that could have destroyed a city hit the human ships. The Defiance shook like it was coming apart, but the shields held. Return fire, Martinez ordered. The human weapons were different from anything the Vrakth had seen. Instead of pure energy or simple kinetic rounds, they fired explosive shells that burst into thousands of metal fragments. The fragments tore through Vrakth hulls that had been designed to deflect or absorb other types of weapons. 3 Vrakth ships exploded in the first volley. The Vrakth fleet paused. For the first time in their existence, they had encountered something unexpected. Their collective consciousness analyzed the human weapons, trying to understand how to defend against them. Interesting, came the grinding voice. Crude weapons with multiple damage systems, adapting defensive protocols. They're learning, Dr. Carter warned. Captain, they're analyzing our weapons right now. Then we better not give them time to figure it out, Martinez replied. All ships attack pattern Delta. Get in close and hit them hard. The human ships moved in a way that shocked both the Vrakth and the Kethali. Instead of maintaining safe distance like every other species, they flew straight toward the enemy fleet. The humans used their ship's engines to ram Vrakth vessels, fired weapons at point-blank range, and deliberately put themselves in danger to get better shots. They fight like they are already dead, Zethara whispered in amazement. No, Colonel, Jackson corrected. We fight like dying doesn't scare us more than losing. The battle raged for 2 hours. The humans destroyed dozens of Vrakth ships, but they were still outnumbered 100 to 1. Worse, the Vrakth were adapting. Their hulls were getting thicker. Their weapons were becoming more accurate. Captain Martinez made a decision that would change everything. All ships prepare for ground assault. We're taking this fight to the planet. Sir, his tactical officer said, ground assault against the Vrakth is considered impossible. No species has ever tried it. No species has ever been human, Martinez replied. Zethara, can your people guide us to their main base? You cannot fight them on the ground, she said desperately. They control the entire surface. It would be death. Maybe, Martinez said, but it would be our death, fought our way. And sometimes that makes all the difference. The human ships broke off from the space battle and dove toward the planet. Behind them, the Vrakth fleet followed, confident that these strange aliens were simply choosing a more convenient place to die. They had no idea what humans were capable of when they stopped fighting like civilized beings and started fighting like the products of a death world. The human ships screamed through Veltar's atmosphere like falling stars. Inside the EDS Defiance, Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Harper checked her weapon one last time. Around her, 200 Marines prepared for what every military expert in the galaxy would call suicide. Listen up, Harper called out over the roar of the engines. Intelligence says the Vrakth have never fought ground troops before. They adapt to ship weapons and energy systems, but they've never seen Marines with rifles and grenades. Sergeant Tony Vasquez grinned as he loaded his weapon. So we're going to teach them about Earth-style warfare? That's the plan. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and hit them with things they've never seen before. Corporal Amy Chen was nervous but trying not to show it. Ma'am, what if they adapt to our weapons too? Then we adapt faster, Harper replied. That's what humans do. We change, we improvise, we overcome. The ship shuddered as it hit the ground, exactly as planned. The humans had deliberately crashed their landing craft into the Vract installations using their ships as weapons. It was a tactic no other species had ever attempted because it was completely insane. The cargo doors blew open, and the Marines poured out into hell. The Vract base was a nightmare landscape of twisted metal and organic growth. The machines had been growing their structures from the bones of dead Cathali cities, creating buildings that pulsed like living things. The air was thick with poisonous gases that would have killed any other species within minutes. The humans barely noticed. "Gas masks on," Harper ordered, though most of her Marines were already breathing through their filters. "Remember, these things have never seen infantry tactics. Use that." The first Vract defenders appeared from the twisted structures. They were horrible to look at, part machine and part rotting flesh with weapons grafted directly onto their bodies. They moved with perfect coordination, like pieces of a single mind. They opened fire with energy weapons that could melt steel, expecting the humans to take cover or retreat like every other species they had fought. Instead, the Marines charged straight at them. "For Earth!" Harper screamed, firing her rifle as she ran directly into the enemy line. The bullets were simple metal and explosive, nothing fancy, but they tore through Vracath bodies that had been designed to resist energy weapons. The machines paused, confused. Their collective mind had no reference for this behavior. Species were supposed to fight logically, using cover and tactical positioning. They were not supposed to run screaming into enemy fire while throwing small explosives. Sergeant Vasquez tackled a Vracath warrior twice his size, driving his combat knife into its organic components while it tried to analyze what was happening. "How do you like that, you metal freak?" Corporal Chen used her flamethrower to clear a path through a group of Vracath drones. The fire did something the machines had never experienced before. It caused them pain. Their organic parts could burn, and they had no programming for dealing with agony. "They're running," Chen called out in amazement. "The machines are actually running away." The Vracath collective mind was struggling to process what it was seeing. These humans fought like they were already dead. They used their own bodies as weapons, threw themselves into dangerous situations, and seemed to enjoy combat that should have terrified them. Engineer Carlos Morales was having the time of his life. While the Marines fought, he was studying captured Vracath technology and combining it with human engineering. He took a Vracath energy rifle and modified it to fire human ammunition. The result was a weapon that could punch through any defense the machines had. "Colonel Harper," he called over the radio, "I've got something for you." "What is it, Carlos?" "I figured out how to make their own weapons work against them. These energy systems are incredibly advanced, but they're designed to be precise and efficient. If we overload them with random inputs, they malfunction." "Show me." Carlos handed her a device that looked like a human grenade crossed with Vracath technology. "It's a feedback bomb. When it explodes, it sends random energy pulses through their network. Their systems can't adapt to pure chaos." Harper smiled. "I love it. How many do you have?" 12, but I can make more if we capture more of their equipment." "Do it." Marines' new orders: "We're not just fighting these things anymore. We're stealing their technology and turning it against them." The battle raged for 6 hours. The humans used tactics that no military academy in the galaxy taught because they were too dangerous. They used explosives in enclosed spaces, fought hand-to-hand with mechanical enemies, and deliberately damaged their own equipment to create improvised weapons. Communications Officer Danny Foster had set up a network between the human and Cathali forces. He was teaching the peaceful aliens how to fight dirty, while learning to use their advanced technology in ways its creators had never intended. "Zethara," he said into his radio, "can your crystal technology disrupt their communications?" "We have never used our crystals as weapons," she replied from her command post. "Well, now's a good time to start. Your people are dying because you won't fight. Maybe it's time to learn." There was a long pause. Then Zethara's voice came back, filled with determination. "Tell me what to do." Foster guided the Cathali through their first acts of warfare. They learned to use their crystal networks to jam Vracath communications, to overload their systems with harmonic frequencies, and to coordinate attacks with the human forces. It works, Zethara said in amazement. The crystals are disrupting their collective mind. They cannot coordinate their attacks. That's the idea. Keep it up. The turning point came when the humans discovered the Vrakth's greatest weakness. The machines had spent so long adapting to advanced civilizations that they had no defense against primitive tactics. When Marine Private Bobby Tucker threw a simple rock at a Vrakth sensor array, it caused a cascade failure that shut down an entire section of their base. "Did you see that?" Tucker called out. "A rock! A stupid rock broke their super-advanced computer." The discovery spread through the human forces like wildfire. They began using the most basic human tools as weapons. Rocks, sticks, fire, and simple machines became devastatingly effective against enemies who had prepared for energy weapons and quantum computers. The Vrakth collective mind was experiencing something it had never felt before: panic. These humans were not following any logical pattern. They used advanced technology alongside primitive tools. They fought like savages but thought like scientists. They were impossible to predict or counter. Colonel Harper led her Marines deeper into the Vrakth complex, following Carlos Morales as he mapped the enemy's network systems. They found the local command center, a massive chamber filled with Vrakth, drones connected to a central processing unit. "That's it," Carlos said. "That's their local brain. If we can destroy it, we can cut off their coordination for this entire region." "How do we get past all those guards?" Harper asked, looking at the hundreds of Vrakth warriors surrounding the command center. "We don't," Carlos replied with a grin. "We go through them." The final assault was pure human madness. The Marines used every weapon they had, including the modified Vrakth technology, human explosives, and their own bodies as battering rams. They fought their way through defenses that had been designed to stop armies, using nothing but determination and the willingness to die for their mission. Sergeant Vasquez planted the last explosive charge on the command center. "Fire in the hole!" The explosion lit up the entire complex. The Vrakth command center collapsed in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Across the battlefield, Vrakth forces suddenly stopped moving in coordination. Their collective mind had been damaged, and they were struggling to function as individual units. "We did it," Harper breathed. "We actually did it." But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Half of her Marines were dead or wounded. Their ships were destroyed. They were stranded on an alien world with an enemy that was already beginning to adapt to their tactics. "Colonel," Danny Foster called over the radio. "I'm getting reports from orbit. The Vrakth fleet is moving. They're coming down to finish us off." Harper looked around at her remaining Marines. They were exhausted, low, on ammunition, and surrounded by enemies who now knew how dangerous they were. But they were still human, and humans didn't give up. "Then we'll have to teach them about human stubbornness," she said. "All Marines prepare for round 2. Above them, the Vrakth fleet descended like a metal storm, confident that they could overwhelm these strange creatures who fought like madmen. They had no idea that they were about to face the full fury of a species that had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them, and they had learned to kill back. The Vrakth ships landed like metal rain across the battlefield. Commander Katie Bell watched from her hidden bunker as thousands of new enemy forces poured out of the landing craft. These machines looked different from the ones they had fought before. They moved more carefully, carried shields, and seemed to know exactly what the humans would do. "They've adapted," she said into her radio. "Colonel Harper, the new arrivals have countermeasures for everything we used yesterday." Harper's voice crackled back through the static. "Then we changed tactics again. Bell, you're the strategy expert. What do you recommend?" Katie studied the enemy movements through her scope. The Vrakth were now using cover, maintaining safe distances, and coordinating their attacks like human soldiers. They had learned from their defeats and modified their approach. "They're fighting like us now," she replied. "But that's their mistake. They think they understand human warfare after one battle." "What do you mean?" "I mean they've seen us fight like Marines, but they haven't seen us fight like guerrillas. Time for Operation Wildcard." Across the planet, the surviving human forces received new orders. Instead of direct assault, they would become something the Vrath had never encountered in their conquest of 47 civilizations. An unpredictable enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern. Major Rick Thompson received his orders while hiding in the ruins of a Keithali city. His fighter had been shot down 6 hours ago, but instead of trying to escape, he had been studying the Vrath patrol patterns. "Command wants me to do what?" he asked his radio operator. "Suicide runs that aren't really suicide runs, sir. Make them think you're going to ram their command ships, then pull away at the last second and hit their support vessels." Rick laughed despite their desperate situation. "So we're going to fight crazy but with a plan?" "That's the idea, sir." Rick climbed into a damaged Keithali aircraft that barely held together. The crystal ship was never meant for combat. But Carlos Morales had modified it with human weapons and Earth-style controls. It looked like a crystal butterfly armed with machine guns and missiles. He flew straight at the largest Vrath command ship, pushing the engines far beyond safe limits. The enemy sensors detected him immediately, and defensive weapons began, tracking his approach. The Vrath computer calculated his trajectory and determined he was attempting a kamikaze attack. They were wrong. At the last possible second, Rick pulled up and rolled under the command ship's belly, firing everything he had into their unprotected power systems. The massive vessel shuddered and began falling toward the planet while Rick flew away, laughing like a maniac. Thompson 2, base. One command ship down and I'm still alive. The crazy plan actually works. Meanwhile, Dr. Patricia Wong was discovering that human biology could be just as deadly as human weapons. She had been analyzing Vrath tissue samples when she noticed something interesting about their organic components. "Colonel Harper," she called over the radio. "I think I found something. The Vrath have incredible immune systems against alien diseases, but they've never encountered Earth bacteria." "What are you saying, Doc?" "I'm saying that common human germs might be lethal to them. Their systems can adapt to energy weapons and kinetic damage, but they can't adapt fast enough to biological warfare." Patricia began working with captured Vrath equipment, using human bacterial cultures to create weapons that attacked the machine's organic components. It was disgusting work, but it was effective. Within hours, she had developed grenades that released clouds of Earth bacteria that ate through Vrath bioarmor like acid. "It's working," she reported as she watched Vrath warriors literally dissolving from the inside out. "They're trying to adapt, but bacteria evolve faster than their computer systems can counter." Chief Engineer Laura Martinez was having her own breakthrough in a captured Vrath workshop. She had been combining human and Keithali technology for days, creating hybrid weapons that neither species had imagined possible. "The key is randomness," she explained to her assistant while building a new type of energy rifle. "Keithali technology is precise and elegant. Human technology is rough and unpredictable. When you combine them, you get weapons that even we don't fully understand." Her latest creation looked like a crystal sculpture crossed with a human shotgun. It fired energy blasts that changed frequency randomly, making it impossible for Vrath defenses to adapt. Each shot was different from the last, creating a weapon that stayed ahead of enemy countermeasures. The turning point came when the humans realized they didn't need to be better than the Vrath. They just needed to be more expensive to fight. Then they were worth conquering. Katie Bell had studied the enemy's behavior patterns and discovered their weakness. "The Vrath don't just conquer worlds," she explained to the surviving officers. "They're like a business. They have to make a profit on each conquest. If we make ourselves too costly to defeat, they'll move on to easier targets." "How do we do that?" Harper asked. "We make every victory cost them more than they gain. We force them to spend resources faster than they can steal them from us." The new human strategy was brilliantly simple. Instead of trying to win battles, they focused on making each battle as expensive as possible for the enemy. They would attack Vrath resource collection sites, forcing the machines to spend energy on defense instead of expansion. They would rescue captured Keithali before they could be processed, denying the enemy new knowledge and manpower. Most importantly, they would make the Vrath waste their greatest asset, their ability to adapt. By constantly changing tactics and using completely random strategies, The humans forced the enemy to spend enormous amounts of processing power on adaptation that became useless within hours. Sergeant Vasquez led a raid on a Vract processing facility where captured Cathali were being converted into machine components. His team moved through the facility like ghosts, using stealth techniques that the enemy had never encountered. The machines guard against energy weapons and explosive attacks, he whispered to his squad. But they don't guard against humans with knives and determination. They freed 200 Cathali prisoners using nothing but silent weapons and careful coordination. The Vract didn't even know they had been attacked until the humans were already gone. The rescue had an unexpected effect on the Cathali. Seeing humans risk their lives to save strangers inspired the peaceful aliens to fight back for the first time in their history. Zethara stood before the survivors in the crystal caverns where they had taken shelter. The humans have shown us something we had forgotten. Sometimes peace must be defended with violence. Sometimes the only way to protect what we love is to fight for it. The Cathali began their first military training in 2,000 years. They learned to use their crystal technology as weapons, to coordinate attacks and to fight alongside their human allies. They were clumsy at first, but they had advantages the humans lacked. Their telepathic networks allowed perfect coordination, and their knowledge of the planet gave them access to resources the Vract couldn't find. Danny Foster was amazed at how quickly the aliens learned. Yesterday they couldn't hold a weapon. Today they're setting ambushes that would make a Marine proud. The Vract collective mind was struggling with a problem it had never faced before. Every time they adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their approach completely. Every time they allocated resources to counter a specific threat, the humans would attack from a completely different direction. Worse, the humans were teaching their Cathali allies to fight in the same unpredictable way. The peaceful crystalline beings were becoming warriors who combined their advanced technology with human tactical thinking. For the first time in their existence, the Vract were facing opponents who could out-adapt them. The machines had spent millennia perfecting their ability to counter logical, efficient warfare. But humans didn't fight logically. They fought with creativity, stubbornness, and a willingness to try tactics that no sane species would attempt. The battle for Veltar was becoming something the galaxy had never seen, a war between perfect adaptation and perfect unpredictability. The Vracath could counter any single human strategy, but they couldn't counter a species that refused to use the same strategy twice. As the fighting entered its second week, reports began reaching the Vracath command from across the galaxy. Other civilizations that had given up on the Cathali were starting to ask questions. If these unknown humans could hurt the Vracath, maybe the machines weren't as unstoppable as everyone believed. The war was no longer just about saving one world. It was about proving that the Vracath could be defeated, that their reign of terror could be ended, and that sometimes the best defense against monsters was to send an even crazier monster to fight them. But the final test was still coming. The Vracath had been holding back their most powerful forces, studying human tactics and preparing their ultimate response. The real battle for Veltar was about to begin. The final battle began at dawn on the 15th day of the war. Captain Ryan Martinez stood in the ruins of what had once been Veltar's most beautiful crystal city, watching as the massive Vracath Prime descended from orbit. The ship was the size of a mountain, bristling with weapons and armor that had been stolen from dozens of conquered civilizations. "That's it," said Dr. Amanda Brooks, her voice filled with awe and terror. "That's their central command, the brain that controls their entire invasion force." Colonel Pete Jackson checked his weapon one last time. "How many people do you think are connected to that thing?" "Millions," Martinez replied grimly. "Every Vracath on this planet, plus all the captured minds they've absorbed over the centuries." The surviving human forces had gathered in the crystal caves beneath the city. After 2 weeks of fighting, only 300 Marines remained from the original force of 600. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, and facing an enemy that had finally stopped underestimating them. But they were still human. And humans had one last trick to play. Tech specialist Andy Roberts finished his work on the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created. It looked like nothing special, just a small metal box covered in blinking lights and crystal fragments. But inside was something that could destroy the Vract collective mind forever. "It's ready," he announced to the assembled officers. "The Chaos virus is loaded and primed, but someone has to deliver it directly to their central processing core." "How? Close?" Martinez asked. "Physical contact. The virus has to be uploaded through direct interface with their main computer." Everyone in the room understood what that meant. Whoever carried the virus to the Vract Prime would not be coming back. The ship would be defended by thousands of enemy warriors, and even if they reached the core, the virus upload would take several minutes, during which they would be completely exposed. "I'll take it," Martinez said immediately. "Sir, you're needed to command the final assault," protested Colonel Harper. "The assault is just a distraction. The real mission is getting that virus to their computer." Martinez picked up the device and clipped it to his belt. "Besides, I'm the one who got us into this mess. I should be the one to finish it." Dr. Brooks stepped forward. "Ryan, there has to be another way. We've come so far, and we'll go farther. Just not all of us." Martinez smiled sadly. "Amanda, when you get back to Earth, tell them what happened here. Tell them that humans answered the call and we didn't back down." The final assault began with everything the humans had left. Major Thompson led his remaining pilots in a desperate attack on the Vract Prime's defensive systems. The Crystal, ships modified with human weapons and Cathali technology, danced through enemy fire like deadly butterflies. "This is Thompson to all units. I'm going to try something really stupid. If it works, it'll open a path to the command ship. If it doesn't, well, it's been an honor serving with you." Thompson flew his ship directly into the Vract Prime's main hangar bay, crashing through the energy barriers that protected it. His ship exploded in a ball of fire and crystal fragments, but the explosion disrupted the enemy's internal defenses, long enough for Martinez and his team to board. On the ground, the remaining Marines and their Cathali allies launched attacks across the entire planet. It was all misdirection, designed to make the Vracath think the humans were trying to destroy their resource facilities. The real target was the Prime itself. Zeth Ara led her people in their first coordinated military action in 2,000 years. The crystalline beings had learned to fight, but they fought with a combination of advanced technology and human tactics that confused the enemy completely. "For Veltar," she called out as her forces struck a Vracath supply depot. "For our children who will never be born if we fail." Inside the Vracath Prime, Martinez and his small team fought through corridors that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. The ship was a nightmare of organic technology and mechanical precision, with walls that bled and floors that tried to grab their feet. Colonel Jackson covered their advance with a weapon that fired explosive rounds designed to damage both mechanical and organic components. "How much farther to the core?" "2 more levels," replied Carlos Morales, who was using a combination of human technology and stolen Vracath scanners to navigate the ship. "But sir, I'm reading massive energy buildup ahead. They know we're coming." The Vracath defenders were unlike anything they had faced before. These were the Prime's personal guards, machines that had been built from the remains of the most dangerous warriors from 47 conquered worlds. They moved with deadly grace and fought with weapons that could have destroyed cities. "Keep moving," Martinez shouted as he fired at a creature that looked like it had been built from the bones of a dozen different species. "We just need to reach the core." The team fought through 3 more chambers, leaving a trail of dead and dying friends behind them. By the time they reached the central processing core, only Martinez, Jackson, and Roberts were still alive. The core chamber was vast, filled with a computer system that stretched up into darkness. At its center was a pulsing mass of organic tissue and quantum processors, the brain that controlled the entire Vracath collective. "There," Roberts gasped, pointing at an interface port near the base of the central column. "That's where the virus needs to go." The Vracath Prime's voice echoed through the chamber, no longer the grinding mechanical sound they had heard before, but something that sounded almost human. "Fascinating creatures. We have analyzed your species completely now. Your unpredictability, your violence, your willingness to die for others. We understand you perfectly." Then you know we're not going to stop, Martinez replied, moving toward the interface port. We know you cannot win. Even if you upload your virus, even if you damage our collective mind, we are spread across 1,000 worlds. You can hurt us, but you cannot destroy us. Maybe not, Martinez admitted as he connected the virus to the interface. But we can. Make sure you remember us. We can make sure every species in the galaxy knows that the Vrakth can be hurt. The upload began, and alarms started blaring throughout the ship. The virus was pure chaos, a combination of human random number generation and crystalline quantum uncertainty. It attacked the Vrakth's logical systems by feeding them information that could not be processed or predicted. Jackson and Roberts held off the attacking defenders while Martinez protected the upload connection. The progress bar on the device moved slowly, painfully slowly, while enemy forces poured into the chamber. 60%, Roberts called out. Keep them back for another 2 minutes. We're trying, Jackson replied, firing his last magazine into a group of Vrakth warriors. But we're running out of ammunition. Martinez drew his sidearm and continued firing, even as enemy weapons tore through his body armor. Upload status? 80%. Almost there. The Vrakth collective mind was beginning to scream. The virus was spreading through their networks, turning their greatest strength against them. Their ability to adapt and learn was becoming a weakness as the chaos code corrupted every system it touched. 95%. Martinez felt something slam into his chest, and he looked down to see a Vrakth energy weapon protruding from his body. Blood was spreading across his uniform, but he kept his hand on the interface connection. Upload complete, Roberts shouted. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Vrakth Prime, systems began failing as the virus spread through the collective consciousness. The ship shuddered and began falling toward the planet as its engines failed. On the surface, every Vrakth unit suddenly stopped moving, in coordination. Their collective mind was fragmenting, breaking apart into millions of individual consciousnesses that had no idea how to function independently. The invasion was over. Zeth Ara found the survivors in the wreckage of the Vrakth Prime. 3 days later, Captain Martinez was dead, along with most of his team. But the virus had done its work. The Vrakth collective was broken, their ships fleeing in random directions, as individual units tried to escape the chaos consuming their network. Dr. Brooks knelt beside Martinez's body, tears streaming down her face. He saved them all. He saved an entire species. He saved more than that, Zeth Ara replied softly. Word is already spreading across the galaxy. The Vrakth can be defeated. Other worlds are asking for human help. 6 months later, the first human embassy was established on New Veltar, the crystal city the Kethali built to commemorate their liberation. Dr. Brooks served as Earth's first alien ambassador, while the survivors of the expedition trained new human and Kethali forces for future missions. The memorial wall in the embassy courtyard bore the names of all the humans who had died in the battle. At the top, written in both English and Kethali crystal script, were the words that had started it all. This is Earth. We received your message. We are coming to help. Hold on. Below that, in smaller letters, was humanity's new promise to the galaxy. We answer the call. We always answer the call. And in the depths of space, another distress signal reached the communication arrays on Earth. Another species in desperate need, another impossible mission, another chance for humans to prove that sometimes the best response to darkness was to light a candle and charge into the void.